So hello everybody, here we are again to welcome you to our second wine chat for Passel Estate. Whilst we are closed in Australia in the tasting room and unable to share our wines with you at the vineyard, we thought it would be really nice to do these online chats where we can talk to you about a different varietal and swap thoughts and views on how to drink it, what to drink it with, how we make it, what are the wines we like, and just generally have a nice session sharing our views and swapping ideas with you. So please, if you're tuning in, send us some likes to let us know that you're here, send us some comments, ask us any questions you like, we'd be happy to answer them. We'd love to chat with you as we go. So I'm Wendy, and this is Barry, and we are the founders and the owners of Passel Estate Vineyard and Tasting Room in Margaret River.
And I'm delighted to say that today we are tasting my favourite of our range, which is the 2016 Passel Estate Shiraz. We make two Syrah or Shiraz-based wines at Passel Estate. This is our core range. It's made slightly differently from our reserve, the Lot 71 Syrah. So this is our 16. We'll just talk about how these are made, and that is the Syrah.
But we're going to talk about this and drink this one today.
Yeah, so they both do very, very well. So why is Shiraz or Syrah my favourite of them? It's I don't know how many of you have ever seen the movie Sideways, but there's a wonderful little segment in there where he's chatting to somebody about why he's so passionate about a particular varietal, in that case Pinot Noir. And he says it's such a difficult varietal to grow well and to make because it's got such thin skin and it's temperamental and it's all of those things. Syrah is not so different as a varietal. Shiraz is not so different. It's certainly towards the lighter end of the reds. It's not a workhouse varietal like Cabernet, not as full bodies as Cabernet, and it's certainly harder to grow great Shiraz fruit. And I think you need a winemaker who's got a genuine passion for the varietal, and Bruce Duke certainly does that. It's probably his favourite of all his varietals, and he does have an amazing passion for it. I mean, in terms of how we, of our style of Shiraz, it's probably a little different from most Margaret River producers, and that's really Bruce's influence. Can call it that. Of that, he's very much like we are about growing varietals to suit the environment, to suit the climate. And obviously, in Margaret River, we have a wonderful maritime climate, but it's much cooler than it would be in Barossa, South Australia. So that where you don't get those big peppery versions of Shiraz that we associate often with Australia. So it's much closer towards a Rhone style.
So I'm giggling at the comments. Hi guys, thank you for joining us. Hello Mark, Jenny, that's hilarious. Saying we were just describing you and Neil. And welcome to Melanie as well. Yes, perfect for a night like tonight. I gather it's still very stormy in Margaret River. We are in lockdown in Singapore, where tonight it's actually quite hot and humid, but still perfect for a glass of Shiraz of an evening. So welcome, thank you, and please keep the comments coming in, let us know what you're drinking and any questions you want to ask, and then I can see a couple of hearts and likes, I like those, thank you very much. So I think, Barry, you were just finishing talking about the stylistic differences.
Yeah, and its similarity to Neil, being sort of thin-skinned and temperamental and all of those good things. But if it's made in towards Margaret River's great strengths, and these are amazing vines. The vines are almost 30 years old. They produce some incredible fruit. Lovely old vines that are very close to our tasting room, so you can actually look at them from the tasting room. And they really do, if it's farmed properly, and I know
which it is,
which it certainly is. And Bruce and our viticulturist Andy have very firm views as to how we grow it, but then also how we make it. And Wendy's going to sort of talk a bit about that in a second. But we make it much towards that Northern Rhone lighter style of Shiraz, which is not as peppery. There's certainly spice and a bit of white pepper in there, but it's a much lighter drinking wine. So, I mean, it is the kind of wine that you could actually drink without having a meal, for example, as a red.
Very feminine, I think, although I'm not sure if I'm supposed to assign gender to our wine these days, but very feminine wine. And hello again. Thanks so much, Karen and Will, for joining in again, and Stefan and James. Great to see you all coming back. And we didn't bore you senseless last week, so thank you. Shall I talk a bit about the vintage for this wine before we go into tasting it?
Yeah.
So this is a 2016, another really nice vintage in Margaret River. Relatively dry vintage across the whole year, a dryish winter, and then a long dry period after that, leading into the growing season. We did have some rains in March, which was perfect timing just to quench all those lovely vines and see them through to full ripening. So I think characteristic of the fruit across Margaret River in the 2016 vintage, really fine structures because of those earlier, drier days, and some really succulent fruit with beautiful aromatics and fragrance. And as most of you will probably know, we really do like the fruit and the wine, the fruit to speak in the wine at Passel Estate, and all of our wines are quite fruit forward, and this is absolutely no exception. So yes, am I carrying on? Would you like to talk about anything else? Hi David, hi Rob, and you're drinking a 1991. Oh, nice.
That is a great wine.
You should tell us how that's going. Have it, that's lovely.
I'm sure that must be ready by now.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, 2016, an amazing year, as was 18 for all varietals, but it seems to be in the even years in Margaret River over the last few have produced some absolutely outstanding fruit and wines.
We had some bird pressure. I do remember that. In 2016 was our second vintage at Passel Estate, and our first experience of the birds really going for our fruit. We didn't have as much blossom in the Marys that year, and we've subsequent vintages have been a little bit trickier in this regard too. But so the birds were really all over the delicious berries. So obviously we had to use our nets judiciously. The end result was slightly lower crop yields, but still, nevertheless, absolutely intense, beautiful flavours in our fruit. So enjoy it and cherish it, because there's not much of it. And we made not just the 16 Shiraz, but the fruit was so delicious. We also made a reserve, the Syrah, which we'll probably talk about a bit more in another session, but an interesting one to compare the two, because they're both the same vintage.
Yeah, so 16 was our first Lot 71 reserve for Syrah.
Yes.
And it was one that we were really hoping to make that year, and the weather god smiled on us. And it was one of those perfect summer seasons. We didn't need to irrigate, really. So there was great concentration in the fruit. Like we always do with our Shiraz, we drop, as they say, quite a lot of the fruit to ensure that we've got great concentration and quality and room between the bunches. That's really a lot of hard work goes in the vineyard, just making sure that there's enough air flowing through the vines that it keeps down and suppresses any problems with disease, because Shiraz certainly can clump together these lovely big bunches, but when it gets wet and it's humid sometimes later in the summer, that can lead to some problems with botrytis and mildew. So we do cut out quite a lot of the fruit, but that just means that we're getting the quality that we want.
And also, I think to your point, to really make sure that these are really airy vines, Andy Ferreira and the team that managed our viticulture brilliantly for us, spend a huge amount of time getting the architecture of the canopy right, just for that very reason. You know, we want to make sure there's all that lovely sunlight on both sides of the canopy, but also as we get towards ripening and we get those hot summer days, we want to shelter the berries from the blistering afternoon heat, so we have a little bit more dappled sunlight in the morning sun, and then we keep the canopy a little fuller on the other side to really protect the berries as the sun rises. So I think it's really fascinating, and I absolutely love this wine. And partly, I think, because I know how much care goes into the fruit and producing the beautiful fruit and the beautifully ripened protected fruit for this beautiful wine, I guess. Should we taste it?
Yes, let's.
I can see some of you drinking it, James. That's great.
Nose in there and get a good whiff.
Thank you.
Amazing nose, great black fruit.
Oh, and Stefan's also drinking
pepper.
it. Great.
Yeah, there's a few of you I see actually who are actually trying the same one, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
So you must be smelling what I am, which is pretty good. It's got a lovely nose. And it definitely still got the spice and a little bit of sort of
Peppery,
mild pepper to it, sort of white pepper rather than black, but it's just got a lovely spiciness to the nose.
Still quite smooth, which is nice. Nice structured, soft tannins.
Yeah, I mean that's very smooth already, and it's it's still relatively a young wine. It'll certainly develop further and probably improve, but already just lovely soft tannins. And that's also something that the guys in the vineyard spend a lot of time working on, is making sure that, because with the Syrah we also use whole bunches, so we're using the stalks and the stems as well. We don't with our core Shiraz, but we still use whole berry and split. So, but it does mean that you have to have the tannins absolutely ripe as well, and very often that's the last thing to come right in terms of when you're deciding to pick is tannin ripeness.
And the stalks and the stems, making sure they're all evenly ripe. Hello, two Davids. Hi, David, and hi, David. David Roberts, yes, this wine is available in Singapore, and I can deliver it on Mother's Day, if you like, on Sunday, because it's next day delivery whilst you're in Singapore. Sorry, but I'm answering a comment, and it's an important one. If you just go onto our website, www.passelestate.com, you can toggle between the Australia shop and the Singapore shop. And in both countries, for 6 bottle orders or more, it's free delivery throughout Australia and throughout Singapore. So you'd be most welcome. Or just send me an email, wendy@passelestate.com. Should we talk a bit about how Bruce makes it? Because as you were saying, Bruce and Remy, both brilliant winemakers. We're so blessed to have them on the team. And Bruce in particular really, really is renowned for his connoisseurship when it comes to creating a fine Syrah or Shiraz. So, as Barry was already saying, when we pick it, we ferment it cool, and it's whole berry ferment. We don't even split or crush the berries. We just keep it whole, so that we have all those beautiful fruit flavours, but a little bit more of the complexity and the structure of the fruit coming through too. It's quite a cool ferment, enjoys softer tannins, and then and it's on the skins. Again, all about these soft tannins. And then we give it a gentle press. I don't know why I'm doing that. I don't press it like that. A gentle press into the puncheons. And we use these big format barrels. We want a much subtler uptake of oak for this fine grape variety. So we have the large format puncheons. In fact, I have a photograph of this. I'm going to try if I can use the technology.
It's quite a cheesy photograph as well.
Very cheesy photo. Having far too much fun. If I can get it up. There we are, sitting on a puncheon, having far too much fun, probably drinking a glass of Shiraz. And we're probably sitting on this this wine right there. So the big format puncheons, so it's a subtler uptake of the oak, but it's really beautiful French oak, about 30% new. And this wine spends 10 months in those big barrels before we filter and bottle it. So this is, hopefully we've got all the oak structure, and some of the characteristics that we want through that treatment, but it's not heavily oaked. It's not too in your face. I think it's beautiful.
And you can certainly, and just choice of oak as well. We're using Rhone Coopers for this varietal, whereas we would be using Burgundy Coopers when you're looking for Chardonnay. So there are the tannins in the oaks which marry absolutely perfectly with certain varietals, and that's an important in terms of the origin of the oak and that we're using, but also in how heavily toasted the profiling that goes in is always tailored to the varietal. And Bruce and Remy are fantastic at doing that. We will sit down with them at the start of before we order the barrels and work out exactly what the profile should look like, depending on season, depending on where they think it's going to get to in terms of fruit. So, I mean, it's a hugely important part of it. It's winemaking you need great fruit, but you also have to get the oak right on the red wines.
You need great people, you need great fruit, you need great region, terroir, Margaret River. It's one of the most wonderful things about wine. There's so much important creativity and romance involved. And I guess what we're always, with all our wines, but particularly with our Shiraz as well, we're always structuring for that structure and that balance and a fine aromatic. So hopefully you'll all agree with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's fascinating, I think, that Australia can produce from the same varietal such vastly different styles of wine. If you were to compare this to a Barossa, it is in some ways almost not like the same varietal. And one of the things we do at the tasting room, unfortunately, sort of not being able to do at the moment, is actually a guided tasting comparing wines from other regions of Australia which are famous for that varietal. And so one of the comparisons that we do as part of that guided tasting, which is called Provenance Unearthed, is a comparison of a Barossa Shiraz against this. And stylistically, it's fascinating to taste the two together and see how different they really are.
Yeah, different winemaking approach and different terroir, of course, much warmer climate. Those beautiful, powerful, big Barossa-style Shiraz alongside our more sort of Rhone-style, maritime, climate-driven, fruity, gentle style, more of a Syrah. And in fact, when we come to the reserve in a few weeks' time, we even call that Syrah rather than Shiraz. Doesn't make any difference, both the same grape, but we're just trying to signal on the label the stylistic approach of this wine and what we're aiming for. Yeah, absolutely.
And David was just asking there whether the style is sort of closer to Hunter than it is to Hunter Valley than it is to Barossa, and in some ways, in some ways a little closer because Hunter is definitely not as warm as Barossa, but Margaret River is even cooler again. In terms of climate, it is much closer to the climate in Bordeaux than it is in anywhere else in Australia. We've got those wonderful currents coming from the Southern Ocean as well as the Indian Ocean. It just cools everything down in a way that elsewhere in Australia really doesn't have that cooler climate. And obviously Tasmania and Mornington to some extent. But then in terms of producing really quality reds, there I would say would be struggling to make a really good Shiraz or a really good Cabernet as well, which Margaret River seems to be able to do a lot of varietals really well, not just one or two.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. It's just heaven on earth. Amazing. I think we should talk about what we like to drink it with. And we've had loads of comments. Stepan is on a roll, telling us all the sorts of wonderful things he's cooking up, with cranberry fruits and all sorts, although the comments are scrolling, and I can't remember the earlier one. Sorry, Stepan. But it was all looking very yummy. I think... what I like to I love Barry's roast lamb is a divine with this it's divine anyway, but with this Shiraz it's beautiful. I also love it with duck, and I would like to share with you an inspired pairing I once experienced with our Shiraz in the early days. I was doing a tasting with the wine editor June Lee of Epicure magazine here in Singapore, and she was inspired. She said, let's meet in a hawker centre. So we went into Tiong Bahru, into one of the famous hawker centres, food centres here in Singapore, and we sat down and we did our tasting, and it was all very professional and wonderful. And she jumped out of her seat and she went over to one of the stalls, and she came back, and I'm going to mispronounce it, but she had bought some chui kueh, or chui kueh, I can't say it, but it's beautiful. It's a rice cake with fermented radish and pork with a chili on the side, and it is absolutely delicious and inspired with this Shiraz. It was heaven on earth. Although actually traditionally chui kueh, if I'm pronouncing it badly, Singaporeans, please forgive me. Traditionally it's a breakfast, not a dinner. So I'm not sure how often you'll get the opportunity to pair your Shiraz with it, but it's wonderful if you do. And I like it with dumplings as well. I have a great friend, who cooks beautiful fried dumplings, and again the Shiraz, with that sort of oily, yummy flavour. So it's great with the Asian food as well as the traditional beautiful.
Yeah, and just to sort of name drop the pork dumplings from Mala Dumplings, who are great friends of ours in Margaret River, go absolutely spectacularly with this. I absolutely love it with Shiraz. I mean, Wendy says normally we'd crack a bottle of this with a 4 hours slow cooked lamb shoulder, and it just seems to pair absolutely perfectly with that. At the tasting room, we do paired cheeses with all of the wines as part of cheese flights. This one we use all of the cheeses from Cambrai, which is a wonderful small producer sort of who owns the animals. He farms the animals. He makes the cheese. He does everything. And his Gouda is absolutely spectacular. It's this creamy Gouda. And so that's the one that we pair it with at the tasting room. And it goes absolutely spectacularly. A lot of people think that's the best of all of the pairings, in fact.
And chocolate, of course, Shiraz is famous for pairing with chocolate. I mean, I think I love chocolate and I love wine, so what's not to like about that? But for me, that's okay. I mean, I can have my Shiraz paired with chocolate, but it is traditionally really good with a piece of dark chocolate. But I think because I love both chocolate and wine so much, I mix up a little bit and will pair any chocolate with any wine, frankly. But that is another one that I think a lot of people like. And Melanie, thank you. She's saying that's the beauty of good wine. You can pair it with anything. I agree.
Or with nothing. And quite honestly, I will. If there's one red wine that I would sit down and just drink without food, it would be this one.
So Seppen's saying, is it your favourite? Is it your favourite?
It's certainly my. It's got a special place in my heart in terms of the varietals we produce. Yeah, mainly because I see how much work goes in, not by me necessarily, in terms of the vineyard, but and also in the winemaking as well.
Yeah, no, it's delicious, and because it goes with so much of the lovely food you cook, it's an easy one to pair with your food, I think. So yes, I mean, what are you? Anybody else talking to it? Send in your comments, pairing it with anything else, anything we haven't thought of. People talk about beef with Shiraz. I'm never so convinced by that. I like our Cabernet with the Shiraz, but a lot of roast beef with Shiraz.
I prefer a more full-bodied red with a cut of beef.
Christo, hi. We must say hello to Christo. So Christo Edwards, Christo and his father, the late Brian Edwards, are responsible very much for some of this wine because they planted the original Shiraz blocks that we're talking about. So it's really nice of you to tune in, Christo. Thank you very much.
Well, that was a long time ago, Christo.
You were doing very short trousers.
Saying it's almost 30 years ago since you would have been sort of slaving away putting those vines in.
So yes, very nice to hear from you. So what else can we talk about? How long have we been? We're told we're not supposed to spend more than 18 minutes talking to you. I can't see how long we've been. We've been 22 minutes.
Whoops. Yeah. So maybe possibly time to wrap up.
Maybe it's time to wrap it up and finish the rest of the bottle over dinner. I hope you're staying warm and safe in Australia, whether you're in WA or Margaret River. Oh yes, and Bill, yes, chorizo and figs, yum, and blue vein cheese. Oh, you had a really great cheese pairing last week as well. We have to remember these. Write these down. That sounds yummy.
Some of that Margaret River venison chorizo, which. Yeah. That spicy stuff is absolutely spectacular with this. Very much just pan fry it and
beautiful,
spectacular.
Beautiful. So we're going to give you a break next week. We're going to make you wait 2 weeks, but we are then going to talk about Chardonnay, which a lot of people really want us to chat about. And we're going to line up something a little bit special to roll into the release of our new vintage of the Chardonnay. So watch out for that. In the meantime, please enjoy your beautiful wines that you're all drinking, whether it's ours or whether it's another producer's. They all sound delicious. If you are still short of an idea for Mother's Day, we do have a special on this wine and alcohol wines if you go onto our website in Singapore and Australia. As I said, I can guarantee delivery on or before Mother's Day in Singapore. I'm not sure I can guarantee it at this stage on time in Australia, depending on where you are, but I'm very happy if you want to order some and let us know the delivery. We can send a really nice, beautifully pictured message to your mum to say something's coming. Just send me an email, wendy@passelestate.com, or go online and put a note in the comments when you check out. To take advantage of the Mother's Day special, when you check out, the code is MOTHER10. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's really fun. I'm enjoying this, and I really appreciate all the hearts and the love and the comments. And Natalia, hi, you've joined as well.
David was just asking whether we have the Lost 71 here. We do.
In Singapore, yes.
We have them all in Singapore. Every one of our wines is here, including the reserves. So we're currently only the 16s, and that is also drinking beautifully. That is probably our most awarded wine. It took a gold at the International Wine Show, the Decanter Show, which was a huge award for us, and ranked as one of the top Shirazes that year in the whole of Australia. It's a very different wine to this. It's wonderful to actually taste them side by side. Yeah.
Quite fascinating.
Stylistically quite different.
Yeah, the same block, the same vintage, a slightly different approach to the winemaking and a hand pick. And anyway, we can go into all of that on another session when we talk about the Syrah. But quite a fun exercise sometimes to open them both, depending on how many friends
Two
you've got
bottles
with
of
you.
wine is always a good
How many friends
it's always
you're
a fun
drinking with,
exercise.
yes. Anyway, I should wrap it up. We're going on and on. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for tuning in. It is so nice to see you all and to see the comments. I really appreciate the support. Have a lovely evening. Stay safe in the storms. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the Chardonnay.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.